Okay. Go
Okay.
on.
Oh God.
Potatoes.
What about potatoes?
Hey, Riley.
I have potatoes?
Yeah. Little did you know.
Little did I know, apparently.
Okay. Dear Lord. Okay. No.
Hi.
No. No.
Are you good, man?
Everything's going great. Don't know what you thought.
I love how my frog is unaffected by.
Everybody knows frogs can't sense danger.
It's true. Hence why they stay in your pool.
Which is funny considering someone wants to kill them.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
But anyway. So go on, Sarah.
Okay, did you just wake up from a nap or something?
It's not. Uh, listen, stuff happened.
Okay.
So, first, technically speaking, I know that you missed 2 weeks
There's two
of
D&D
D&D,
updates.
and then you get to your
Basically,
obsession.
yes. As far as D&D updates go, last time we left off, we had kind of just finished all the weird flashbacks, and we had just ended up finally ran into Laird Skane. And so we finally got to have a talk with him last week. Talked to him, and we found out there's some weird shit going on. He doesn't know what happened. He doesn't know he was even dead. And then also the person who was claiming to be his partner in these flashbacks, he says that guy was just a manservant, like there was no connection at all. And he says that while we were having all of these flashbacks, he was on a ship called like the Lindor or something like that. I can't totally remember the name, but
Big
that's a
truffle?
ship that isn't. Yes. But that ship isn't coming into port at the town we're in until like next week. So we're like, okay, I guess we'll meet back up then. And we go back downstairs to where we initially were because we were in this giant tower. And the tower that was filled with all sorts of stuff, like filled to the brim and had people in it, is now completely empty, except for a little parcel. And we look at the parcel, and it is some books for my character, the magic whip that our fighter found, the scissors that our warlock was messing with, and then a pocket watch mirror type thing that Yoshi's character, the bard, was messing with. And it just has a note saying like, you might want to leave because you don't want to be there whenever something comes to here. And we're like, okay. So we go ahead, we leave, and we end up going back up to the main city, and we're kind of having a small interlude before we pick back up on the main plot. And we were told by the DM to go ahead and give him like little things that we would be pursuing while in the city during this time. And so my character is doing studies based around the weird dragon mark that they now have, and also just got a bunch of books and everything from both the people from the tower, then also from the people who we were the people who hired us to look for Laird Skane kind of paid us because we lied to them and we said we didn't find him, because we don't trust them. But they paid us anyway, and so they went ahead and gave me my books. And so I'm doing research, and as I'm doing that, our fighter is all restless and everything, and he went out to a courtyard where there's like little makeshift shooting range and was shooting arrows, and then he fucking exploded. One of his arrows just exploded. And so I hear this and I go running out, and I'm like, what the fuck did you do, basically? And he has no idea. And I am able to sense that, oh, there's some magic in you now, and now my character's like, ah, fuck, I have to teach this guy to use magic? I didn't know you knew magic. And this orc that is very clearly an illusion of an orc that has 2 balloons is looking at the crater that was left behind, and basically we kind of, well, specifically Fennec, the fighter, gets served interdimensional like law papers. We're
Sure.
not sure what's going on. We're like, what is happening? And they also call him a fox elf, and he's a human. And they also call my person a blue elf. I'm an air genasi. That's technically half elf. And so we're like, what? Meanwhile, our warlock Elias is woken up by this little kitten, who is apparently a celestial being named Herbert, who borrowed someone's boldness and now wants Elias to go help him get it back and return it to where it needs to be. And our bard, Felicity, is going to pick someone called Auntie Aggie up from the Lightning Rail Station in Sharn. And they both end up in the same place, and Auntie Aggie gets attacked by this weird glass fire person, and they end up kind of chasing it off, and it like kind of disappears into the rail. And so they go back and they go to the embassy that Auntie Aggie was there for, and we all end up getting summoned. So we all end up at this embassy and all that stuff, and we're told like, hey, the reason Auntie Aggie was gonna be here is because her dead son was kind of delivered to us in a coffin that was sealed with magic. And so we wanted, and he doesn't know what year it is. He thinks the war's still going on. And so we were wanting her to talk to him and kind of calm him down. But now that she's injured, Felicity, we need you to go talk to him because you're the next best thing in this case. And so she's gonna go do that. And I talked to him, I'm like, hey, this is very similar to what we kind of experienced with Skane, ain't it? And so we just have that little conversation, and then Felicity goes up to where they're keeping this guy, and he has managed to cut through his things that were restraining him and stab a guard, and has escaped. And like escaped. And now we're like, well, fuck. And we get taken over to where the coffin that he was delivered in was, and there's like a little note that mentions like Hollow Earth and everything like that. And we failed at our investigation checks, but myself actually remembered Hollow Earth being mentioned way back in like section 4 or something like that in the ruins that we were in. And so I was able to be like, yeah, that. And he was like, yep, that's the same thing, and you don't know why it's there though. And then that's where we had to end the session, because we got put into a map that seems to be really big, and for some reason my browser or the computer, I don't know, just cannot load it for the life of it. So the Dungeon Master's gonna kind of mess around with the actual map and see what he can do to like make it smaller maybe, so that my thing can load it, because it's just a gray box for me at the moment.
So you've become the problem child.
It's the computer that's the problem child.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the current D&D update. And then as far as weekly, I think weekly obsession would have to be the thing I've been studying for this episode, because it's a big boy.
Really? That's become your weekly obsession?
Kind of, yeah.
I had a few that I specifically wanted to look at just because I remember going through them and seeing other people talk about them too. Because that's the other thing. Everything it's like Five Nights at Freddy's all over again, where it's like speculation, technically, because there's not like confirmed things. But, for me, technically speaking, because I think I skipped it last week, but between last week and then this week, I found 16 new songs, and my main one that has been stuck in my head, technically there's two that have been stuck in my head, but the main one, Sarah already knows because technically she heard it.
Oh boy. Is it what I think it is? Is it the gnarly one?
It's called Gnarly. and it's stuck in my head because of how funny I find it. And
It's something. It's very loud.
it's very, listen, all I can say is if you ever want to walk down a dark alleyway with confidence, that's the song you need to play.
Just have that playing. Oh God.
Because no one can touch you if that's what's
Are you
blaring
playing it
from
out
your
loud?
headphones.
Okay. I was about to say, is that like playing out loud, or
No,
is it just in your
it's
head?
very much a similar how to like ghosts can't attack you if Carmel Danson's on. It's very much a vibe check song where I feel like no matter what, nothing can actually upset me if I'm listening to that song, you know?
Well,
And then in terms of weekly obsession, I would say probably playing Pokemon. Specifically Pokemon Y. Because I've been playing that from the beginning again because I haven't played it in forever. And I completely forgot that you
so
had
you completely wiped your original save file?
yeah, because I barely had any Pokemon on it anyways. I've done that with Platinum before too, because I don't really mind, honestly. I don't really keep that many Pokemon that I would have wanted to take off of it
Yes.
on there. I like transfer them.
Well, that's fair.
But I've been playing that from the beginning, and I completely forgot that there was like 4 companion characters,
Yeah.
and that they immediately give you XP share, and that you start to like I technically speaking, because I for the longest time was trying to get a white Flabébé, because I looked it up to see if it was possible, and it is, but apparently I am just the horrible worst luck in the world in that regard. So I gave up after a while, but because of that, I had like over leveled my starter Pokemon by at least 15 levels at that point.
Well,
And so I've just been skating through, and technically speaking, I think I'm on the second to last gym because I just completed the fairy gym. And I also forgot how high level the gyms end up getting because they're like already in the 50s, technically speaking, which I thought was surprising. But because I think the main thing that I ever like fully remember from Y was the Elite Four, because I thought that was pretty memorable with how that was set up.
yeah, their rooms are really cool.
But in terms of like the story, other than like big tall man, small flower, potentially boom boom, like not much else going on. And
I like the post game a lot
I
in
feel
X
like
and Y.
there's a lot more things that happen that aren't part of the main storyline that are
Yeah.
supposed to be way more interesting.
I also really like playing dress up, so
Well, that's the
I'm
thing
playing
though.
with the movie maker thing. Yeah.
With dress up, you have with if you want like good options, you need to beat the Elite Four already.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's annoying in that aspect.
I remember I would specifically just keep beating the Elite Four to just keep getting money so I could buy more clothes.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some place to get it, but I really need to find the amulet coin if I'm just gonna end up killing a bunch of people. I mean, making their Pokemon faint, not killing them. But you know, that's what crime doers do. Also, you know, Hide, I don't remember. Was it Coliseum that was on that GameCube list one?
Yep.
Yeah, they have Coliseum. They are technically bringing it back.
XD and Coliseum are coming back.
It's just at a big hefty price tag. You know, a fun
And
hefty price tag.
There's no guarantee you're gonna be able to like transfer Pokemon from those games either.
I wouldn't expect you to be able to, considering how like much of a workaround it was to transfer Pokemon from those old games, even if you had a legit copy. But I don't know. Also, Hide, if you have the disc and everything, why do you want them to bring it back? You already have access to it.
I mean, does he have a GameCube to play it on?
That's on him, and he should. He has hookups. In every single sense of the word. Anyways.
Well.
Oh, and before I wanted to ask you. So my mom recently described a Pokemon as a flamboyant otter. And I want you to tell me what Pokemon you think she was talking about.
Is she talking about oh, what's not Floatzel. The evolution
Weasel?
of
Floatzel's
no,
the bigger one. Weasel's the
I
smaller
am
one.
thinking of Floatzel then. Floatzel.
No, it's not an actual otter in any
Oh,
sense of the word.
that makes this a lot harder. Um, it's not an actual otter. Is it a water type at least?
Nope.
Is it a normal type?
No, I'm pretty sure
type is
it's
it?
ghost fire.
Ghost?
Let me look it up just to make
A
sure.
Alolan Marowak? What?
No, close.
How is that close? It's one of the only ghost fire, because it's not Chandelure. It's not the Chandelure line.
No,
Ghost fire types?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it is ghost fire. I double checked.
Is it Is it the Hisuian Typhlosion?
Yes. She said, why is there a flamboyant otter over there? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she pointed out, I was like, Typhlosion?
Is there a,
She said because it looks like it's wearing a pink feather boa.
where did she see that? Because that's Hisuian Typhlosion isn't in Go, is it?
It is.
Huh.
And clearly
I
the
didn't know they
flames
had
were
that.
out.
Well,
Yeah. Anyways, that was the fun thing. Now, I will specifically. So, everybody raise your hand right now. Who knows what analog horror is? The actual definition.
like a textbook definition?
Because there are different instances of, like, obviously digital horror of any kind, but digital horror in and of itself is kind of a separate thing that's related to storytelling stuff based on the internet through 2000s and 2010s rather than 80s and 90s.
Well,
Well, Mikey, go on. Give us your definition. Put on blast. I feel like, generally speaking, there's a lot of tropes that are very easy to find. Because in my mind, one of the main things, obviously, first of all, it almost always has to do with VHS tapes of some kind, or VCRs, or broadcasts of recorded of broadcasts, or home videos that specifically were shot on tapes that would be played in a VHS player. And a lot of the times, at least a lot of the ones that I specifically have seen commonality wise are ones related to either public service announcements / emergency broadcasts of some kind, or having to do with like shows, like more specifically like shows that have nothing to do with the actual topic. Like it would be a nature documentary and then suddenly it would do its typical cutaway creepy bit where suddenly the audio goes mute or something and then you see a weird distorted face in the distance. Because that's another thing. If you see a very boring, I say boring, it's because it's common. A very common trope for it is that you see just random distorted faces.
it's true.
Like that aren't necessarily even scary at this point. It's more just like, why? But some people find that creepy. Or like the ominous visual glitch of like it'll like cut the cameras dead ass but like creepy edition where they just like freeze and the audio stops and then something happens. But I mean, that's the thing. In in my mind, obviously it has to do with unnerving things in particular, but I always feel like there's some kind of guesswork involved. Like there's always some kind of mass guessing involving what the lore of the story is. It's very Five Nights at Freddy's in terms of there's never confirmed lore necessarily, as much as there's just like things that have come out that people have made their interpretations of. There was one, I forget what it was called. I think it was not Fleshgate. I promise that's not what it is.
Fleshgate?
Apparently this is an SCP. I didn't think it was. The Mystery Flesh Pit National Park.
I don't know what that is.
That's okay. But yeah, those are the general themes that I always end up seeing. There's also, I mean, common ones are like some kind of cosmic horror in terms of like an unknowable force that seemingly appeared and or has always been there but has been toying with us, blah blah blah, that we can't necessarily fathom. But then also a lot of the times it's just, I don't know, like apocalyptic scenarios. I feel like that's also just something you always end up seeing, where like somehow there's a threat to humanity that is happening in this current moment through odd means, and you need to be aware of it, otherwise you will die. And yet people die anyways. There was one that I found really interesting in terms of it seemed unique. And I had heard about it a long time ago, and I looked up specific theories on it because I was very curious about it. But it's this one called the Monument Mythos. And the whole shtick of it is that it follows a bunch of videos that are basically like alternate history videos in the forms of like documentaries and stuff, but it focuses specifically on like well-known monuments. So like the Statue of Liberty, the Eiffel Tower, the weird arc in Minnesota. Is that what it is? Is it in Minnesota? What's that arc in state-wise?
What arc? Like the arc?
No. Minnesota. Minneapolis? Minneapolis Arch. Minneapolis Arch. Minneapolis
I don't even know what that is.
No, it's not Minneapolis. What is
A Stone Arch Bridge?
the Gateway Arch? St. Louis. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay. I was like, what are you
I got
talking
there eventually. But yeah, it's basically the whole point of it is that, oh, also the Lincoln Monument. I remember that one in specifically because of how weird it was. But it has to do with all of these different giant statues or monuments and how there's things that have been inside of them this entire time.
What's it called again?
The Monument Mythos. And there's like this entire weird found part of it that has to do with like how there was weird lightning transporting people to different dimensions, and how they think that someone is specific, or oh my gosh, there's one having to do with the Grand Canyon too. Basically just giant well-known public either things or places that are all within this weird time frame of having odd things exist in them, as if like the government itself had made these things specifically to counteract whatever was actually there.
I just see something that says the Nixon verse.
Yeah, see, it has a, like I said, it has an alternate history timeline, and I think in one of these, what's his name, it wasn't Nixon, it was a famous person. Who was the famous person? It had,
Let's see, fictional presidencies of J.D. Rockefeller, James Dean, Al
James
Gore.
Dean. That's who it was. James Dean was president. All I know because I watch them, but at the same time, there's so many different videos on this at this point.
It's a timeline in which former U.S. President Richard Nixon became a god.
Yeah.
What in the hell?
I promise it is interesting. In the sense of it does not follow a lot of the normal tropes. Like it has some tropes, but it doesn't follow all of them.
Well.
But yeah. And then like that versus what I would say is probably a very well-known one. The Mandela Catalog.
See, okay, I think I confuse the Mandela Catalog with the Walton Files a lot.
Very different story.
I know, but I think it's gotten confused in my brain, and I honestly don't know which one's which.
Well, just think the Walton Files is like Five Nights at Freddy's, but not. You know?
Uh-huh.
Plus, with the Walton Files, I will at least give it the fact that it has like 2D animated art associated with it, rather than just like random found footage that's probably just someone putting their recording through a bunch of different filters. But it is also just as convoluted, let's say, as Five Nights at Freddy's in its own way. Maybe not as much as Five Nights at Freddy's, but it is convoluted. And the Mandela Catalog, I feel like, is more convoluted in the sense of it has absolutely no way of actually getting into it without trying to watch some kind of like lore dump video. Like the most I know specifically about Mandela Catalog, solely from like osmosis at this point, because I have not watched any of it myself, has to do with there's this fake angel, I think Archangel Gabriel, but it's not a real angel specifically, because I don't know if it's implied, but people think it like might be Satan. And he talks to certain people and like comes down to visit them and all this stuff. And he convinces, well, no, I don't know if he convinces as much as he makes these things called like alternates. And they're supposed to be like body doubles for people, and the body doubles will follow those specific people and try to get them to like commit seppuku. And once they do, they take their place. And they are like trying to subvert that messaging, the subliminal messaging, into the mass populace, so that more of these alternates will like be born in a way to then take over for these other people. But the problem is it's done through like police reports, as well as like I think a horrible paranormal investigation unit made up of, I believe, like really young people, fake young people, because none of these people are real. But and I think that's what makes it so much more convoluted and confusing to actually understand what's happening. And they also are, I feel like, one of the biggest proponents of the scary face. Basically,
yeah,
where they just show someone but with like a creepy smile, and they're like, this is an alternate, don't go near them, like. And so that's what I always end up thinking of when I think of like a quote-unquote well-known one, other than like Backrooms, if you want to consider that an analog horror.
There was one, I can't, is it Gemini Home Entertainment? That one I'm thinking of.
Tell me the vague idea of it, I can tell you if it's right.
It's like, it's
wood
similar,
crawlers.
kind of, but it's like they're underneath the earth, kind of a deal.
In a way. I mean, I know one of the main specific ones from Gemini Home Entertainment shows these weird creatures that were like not only under the earth, but also like in the Mariana Trench, and like they had existed there for a long time.
Yeah, one of the things that is very common in analog horror is the entire idea of either something like some sort of paranormal entity within whatever footage that it is that you're watching, or something in the realm of uncanny valley, specifically mimicking humans. Because that was also in Gemini Home Entertainment, is that there's fake people and doppelgangers and everything.
Yeah. I think that's one of the main proponents in terms of, I don't know, maybe because analog horror very much I feel like is a younger generation sort of thing that had a boom with a bunch of people being interested in it. So I wonder if for some reason like we gravitated towards Uncanny Valley stuff in terms of that being what was scary to us.
Well, the entire idea of Uncanny Valley in general is just kind of scary in general, because it's a case of, because every human has it. It's an evolutionary feature. There was at some point something that was so reminiscent of human but not, that we developed this evolutionary instinct, I guess, of being scared of it, of being wary of it, of knowing that, hey, this is wrong and we need to stay away. Also, Mikey Nixon was a president. He was just impeached.
Actually, Nixon didn't exist. It was James Dean that was the president at the time.
No.
I think a lot of just like turning things, I think, which kind of goes hand in hand with the Uncanny Valley, but I think like mutations of any kind that like make something wrong. I think that's what very much is with Gemini Home Entertainment. That one, I mean, the gist of it, I guess, was that there were things that existed on Earth that I want to say came from Neptune, because Neptune itself was like something living.
Yeah.
Because at one point, like, it showed Neptune had an eyeball and then Neptune disappeared. And it like shot a laser on the Earth that put these wood crawlers on it. I will say though, with Gemini Home Entertainment, it has a video game that you could have played that went along with it that explained some of the stuff that happened. But it was like, it was an old seeming game that like looked like it came out of the 90s. And I thought that was interesting. But then another similar one in terms of, I guess, cosmic weird stuff that happened was Local 58. Because that
was specifically aliens, wasn't it?
I mean, it was.
It was the weird news ones.
Because like there's this big shtick surrounding, like, there was some kind of moon creature or whatever that was on the Earth that it showed in one of the episodes specifically. I think it was called like You've Reached Your Destination or something. But in terms of, I think all of it is kind of like either that came from the moon and there's something on the moon, specifically like in the moon, or it came from somewhere else that lived on the moon and now it's here. Because one of the big things was like during one of them, there was a broadcast that was like constantly being overwritten telling people to not look up at the moon, and then it was saying no, you should go out and look up at the moon. And then if you did look up, like there's footage of specifically the moon and like something on it that looks kind of like a base, except when the audio was playing for it, you just heard a bunch of people screaming. I think the most recent one that they came out with though was The Woman in Profile, I think, where it was basically a fake documentary that was showing like this account of a woman in profile that's seen in this local area, where they say that she looks up at the sky and it makes you like gaze up where she's looking instead. But then later on it shows someone looking at the woman in profile showing up, and like a flash goes off, and you see that it's actually something that looks like a woman in profile normally, except when you specifically are looking at it, it's looking at you with both of its eyes looking at you, and it just looks like that from the side to make you look up at the moon.
Yeah, I see here the man filming the woman zooms in, revealing the woman to be a creature with two faces and distorted spider-like body.
So also
Talk
very
to it.
alien-esque.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like
Predator cannot differentiate between prey and accomplice, and there's a safety in numbers thing that keeps popping up in this.
like generally speaking, I think I found that interesting, the entire Local 58 one, because I want to say it was one of the first ones, at least, in terms of coming out with popularized news versions in terms of analog horror, because it stuck with the Local 58 shtick the entire time. Whereas like Gemini Home Entertainment was more of like a bunch of different things that could have played on that area, or like I guess that channel, versus Local 58 was specifically made for things on the news. And it didn't do nearly as much like public service announcement, evil broadcast sort of things, as you'll see a bunch of other ones do.
I do like ones that are like Local 58, where it's like, hey, here's something that was aired on the news, kind of a thing. I think that stuff is very interesting, and I like that medium. I think it's very creative and interesting, and just it does feel that dread and everything. Like, oh God, can you imagine if this actually did pop up on your screen and everything like that?
That's the other thing. All of these are typically like centralized within very specific towns in North America.
Yeah.
Because especially, and some of them are real towns, some of them are not real towns, but I feel like that also kind of adds to the weird factor of what if it was just affecting this one weird area and no one else knew about it. Do you know about the boiled one?
The boiled, like Doyle?
No.
The boiled
If this is
one.
what Doyle looks like, I feel bad for him.
What are you talking about?
This is the boiled one.
Oh God. I don't like that that's just in our chat now.
He's Doyle.
Hey Doyle!
Look at Doyle. Aren't you
What is
happy
this
to
from?
see it? The boiled one. The boiled
Is that
one
what it's called?
phenomenon. That one specifically only has to do with like hijacked broadcasts, and it had to do with people being put into like a catatonic state and having Doyle, as you've now referred to him, show up to them until like eventually, I think he made blood rain out of the sky at some point. Basically, he hijacked broadcasting networks to infect people that saw him, and then those people were being kind of killed by him because he was supposed to be like some sort of prophetic religious end time shtick.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Shinny, if you don't know Doyle the Boiled, I can't help you. That means you haven't looked back in our catalog of videos.
It kind of feels, just based on like the very beginning, it kind of feels like an SCP almost.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like there's a giant crossover in SCP versus analog horror. Like, it would not surprise me if analog horror could be, like the additional files / additional, coverage of like an SCP or an SCP event. Because they have those in SCP where like just an event or something happened at a certain area. And so I could definitely see that being 100% a thing. I was surprised though, because I specifically was looking to see if there's like an analog horror wiki.
There's a plush made of the boiled one.
Well, maybe. I know I'm getting you for your birthday. But I don't know.
No, he doesn't. He just looks so lovely.
Doesn't he? He looks happy.
He looks so happy to see you. Who would want a plush of this?
You?
No, I do
I'm
not.
gonna get that for your birthday. I'm gonna hide it in your room, and then I'm gonna wait for you to find it.
I would scream,
Good.
probably.
He wants you to be happy. He
I don't
wants
think so.
you to be happy the way that he's happy. You know?
I don't want to be boiled, thank you.
I know at one point the Gemini Home Entertainment sold stuffed plushes of the wood crawlers.
Everything can be a marketable plushie.
At this day and age, absolutely. Oh, right. Oh, God. And then there's the flesh people, too. Well, I guess they weren't flesh people. They were more like made out of stuff, like weird viscera.
I look up the flesh people and it says the flesh in a religious context, particularly with Christianity.
It wasn't
Like,
called
no,
the flesh
that's-
people. I mean, it was part of the Gemini Home Entertainment, because this was back when I don't remember if it was specifically the wood crawlers, but I know it had to do with the doppelganger things,
Doppelganger.
where they were growing, either growing or digesting. I don't remember. It was one of the two. Either they were building up or breaking down human bodies by like making them from scratch, and it started with like the veins and everything, and so you'd see these silhouettes of people's veins sitting in chairs, but they had working eyeballs that would look at you.
Yeah, I remember that too. There's also like artificial intelligence also in the Gemini Home Entertainment.
See, this is what I'm saying though. I feel like Gemini Home Entertainment is a very good all-rounder.
Yeah.
Because it has everything you want. It has the scary doppelgangers, it has cosmic horror, it has aliens, it has weird public service announcements, it has a bunch of just different like media to go forth from, like the video game and all that. And because there's so much of stuff that has come out specifically from Gemini Home Entertainment, there's a lot of different theories on it too.
Oh yeah.
Talk about yours,
Well,
Sarah. You like
The one
Petscop.
Petscop. Oh, Petscop. I think I first heard about Petscop when Game Theory did a video on it back when it was still being produced in 2017. And I remember, because I honestly, I forgot that Game Theory did a video on Petscop, and I rewatched it during all of my research and everything, and I realized that, yeah, this is where I first heard about it. But specifically, I remember it because the story that was, don't hug me, I don't think that counts as analog horror.
No. It could be creepypasta territory.
I think it's more creepypasta.
I mean, well-made
'cause it's not really
creepypasta.
Yeah, it's not really found footage or anything like that. And even Petscop kind of leans into almost more of a creepypasta territory.
I feel it leans very digital horror, sort of, with how it's like
Yes.
recorded and everything.
Yes. But specifically, I remember when I initially watched the video of Game Theory that talked about Petscop, it really upset me.
Okay.
Because it upset me because of the story that it alluded to of Candace Newmaker, which is a very, very tragic real life story that happened, and it absolutely disgusted me. I'm not gonna talk about it. If you want to know about it, go look it up. Just know it's very just upsetting. And so there's a lot of allusions to it. And so a lot of people thought, yeah, this entire the Petscop is like meant to be about the Candace Newmaker case, but the creator has said like, no, these are just illusions. It's more of like a guide rather than a direct comparison type thing. And I think there's like 22 videos of Petscop
And some of
now.
them are long.
Well, that's the thing. Some of them are not actually. Some of them say like the timestamps on YouTube say that they're like an hour long. They're like 15 minutes. Like there seems to be some sort of glitch happening, which is very funny. But there are so many details in this. It's so hard to actually like comprehend it all. But the basic idea of it, the overarching idea, is that this guy named Paul, or who we're assuming is named Paul because that's what he names his character as, has found this game called Petscop, this old PlayStation 1 game called Petscop, that looks like it's very unfinished, and he's recording it to prove to someone that he's not lying about the weird stuff, because he found it with a note and everything. And we learn later on, like, oh, his mom probably had it, and everything like that. But then there's a lot of things that just aren't making sense. And he even says at one point, Paul even says at one point, like that, oh, the game is like trying to make it seem like there's something in, like that the game is haunted. And he says like, but it can only be haunted if something comes out and touches me, basically, is what he said.
Ominous.
Which is interesting because of reasons that happened way later on, like in one of the third to last episodes. But there isn't as much to drive. There's two specific things that, well, actually no, there's like 3 or 4 things that I can think off the top of my head that are like genuinely spine chilling. And I think part of it is that's part of why I like Petscop so much, is that it doesn't seem outwardly that scary necessarily until you get to these certain parts where it's like, oh, what the fuck kind of a deal. Because there's no like necessarily scary imagery or anything like that. Sure, like all of the graphics are kind of like, well, this is weird, but it's also like old game graphics, so it's not that, in itself is not that unsettling. And so I think that's part of the reason I like it, but I also like that you can view it in a lot of different ways, because there's no concrete story, and so a lot of people view it in a lot of different ways. And so there's like the artificial intelligence way, there is the entire, oh, it's actually haunted way, or some people are trapped in this game and everything like that. But what I like is the absurd amount of detail that has gone into both trying to decipher it and also just creating it in general. Because like before, and this is why I said like, this is why it's become kind of my obsession, because there's so much to uncover. There is like a 120-page document that goes over almost everything that the community has like figured out so far. And one of the videos I was watching is someone was tracking one of the characters' like movements and footsteps and how it correlated to other things that have happened, because there's a lot of moments where movement in one episode completely matches up the with movement that happens in a later episode. And it's just, so people have been like making maps, and there's a lot of playing with the idea of this one thing exists in this universe but it doesn't exist in this universe, or like the idea of parallel universes, of things kind of just existing beside each other but also not existing at all. And the way that it plays with this idea is so fascinating to me. But like the moments where there's like that's cemented as like kind of more of the analog horror thing is like the first time we're ever like given something that is like genuinely like kind of disturbing. Because you could argue that when Paul picks off all of the petals that turn care into like that glitchy red mess and that he can't interact with, you could argue like that's kind of unnerving, but even that is like, okay, that seems like an intentional thing rather than anything else. It's like this is a puzzle, especially once we figure out how he solves it later on by making the treadmill go to -1 kind of a deal. um but it's when the red tool that Paul has been asking questions to turns pink, and without, and kind of is, I don't remember if it's without asking anything or after asking a question and getting no response, just gives this statement of turn off PlayStation. It's the idea of like, okay, we are suddenly being told to turn off the PlayStation. This game, is this like intentional or something like this? Is this a thing where it's like, okay, you gotta, is this trying to freak me out? And then saying like, oh, Marvin hurts me when PlayStation on. And we're like, because this is the first time we hear about Marvin. This is the first time we're like, what's going on? This is the first time we're kind of like, okay, this seems a bit more than just a hidden thing. And then I think right after that, we get the entire thing with the windmill and being shown when the windmill and being shown as Paul just watches out this window, and this guy, the person who was mentioned in the note of the shadow monster man, being just placing these blocks and everything like that, and they're talking seemingly directly to Paul, and it's just, that itself is just kind of unnerving because it's we get the words from Paul like, hey, yeah, this happened after I stared out this window for like over 2.5 hours. So like, what the hell? And there's a lot of demo footage and everything that seems to be, it's that, this is where it's like, is it an entity in the game or is it AI? Because there's a bunch of this demo footage that seems to be, sometimes it seems to be Paul controlling it, and other times it seemed to not be, but it's Paul's character and they're talking to a Paul, but Paul isn't there, and it's weird and everything like that. And there's times where Paul is on the phone with someone, and it's, as soon as a different character walks into frame, it seems that person on the phone has gone away because he's asking like, hey, where'd you, like, are you still there, and everything like that. And this character on the screen is trying to get him to go somewhere and everything. And there's one of the other haunting moments is one of the videos, it just shows like, it's like a warning screen almost that has a like a number that gets like censored and everything. And that's another thing, there's a lot of censorship, like self-censorship and everything like that. And it says like, hey, if this is showing that the PlayStation's been idle, do whoever is reading this, do not turn off the PlayStation, kind of a thing. So now we've gotten like two conflicting messages of to turn it off and to not turn it off. And then it shows in like a burn-in monitor thing where it's showing a room, and it's showing what is like monitoring someone in this very bare bones room. And as it's like flickering back and forth, it eventually, this dot that was on the bed, this dot that was on the bed then eventually goes to the chair, and then Paul is back and playing Petscop. And it's like, okay, is it monitoring Paul for some reason? And it comes back later towards like one of the ending ones where it's like, we don't really know if Paul's actually playing or not, because he's not talking to us, but he's talking in the game. And he has to show, and where Marvin, the character Marvin, who is shown not to be a good guy, is asking like, hey, Paul, which room is yours? And there's like 10 different rooms being shown on the walls, and Paul picks out which one is his, and Marvin says, perfect, here I come. And Paul is very clear, like, what? No, no. And then he gets cut off. And then one of the other characters is like saying, you gotta do this to keep him from coming in, but it's too late by then. And it's just, there's a bunch of stuff that's like, what in the world is happening? And there's no concrete answers. There's also the entire thing where Paul seems to be playing all of this from a car for
What?
some reason. Yeah, we don't know. It's very confusing, but it's brought up, and cars are like very important in this for some fucking reason.
Like a Jeep
And it's
Grand Cherokee?
No. But there's a theory that parts of these people's souls that have played the game are now within this game, and they're stuck in this game. And even like one of the creators is also stuck in this game and can talk and still affect the game, and doesn't have an actual like player piece necessarily, but can interact with the other people who do have player pieces, like Marvin or Belle / Giara, or and now Paul. And there's also just how Paul figures out he can go into areas that he can't really see, by mimicking like he can go in there, where he's put together that somehow his actions in that he's done on the main recordings have made demo recordings that line up directly with what he did. And so he's able to see other things now, and we're able to be like, okay, something's going on here. And as he's doing that, some text box appears, and this character who we know as Care, who is kind of being portrayed as him at the moment, as Paul, ends up saying something that he exactly said his previous birthday, and that freaks him the fuck out. And there seems to be more, and it's like a constant like comparison, like somehow there's, for some reason, the real world is being paralleled in this game. And that's kind of why I like kind of more the idea that the person who created the game, Rainer, made the game to try to recreate people's psyches through more of a AI kind of thing, rather than like, oh, he trapped their souls or something in there. Because it's made very clear that Rainer made this game for Marvin because Marvin probably killed Rainer's little brother and kidnapped his own daughter and stuff like that. And the idea is basically to show Marvin like, hey, we know what you did. Tell me what you did. Explain to me what's going on here, kind of a thing, to kind of pressure Marvin. But we see...
It's a very roundabout way of doing that.
Yeah. But that's part of why I like the idea that, okay, Rainer has more recreated these people in the game rather than these people are trapped in the game. Because we see later on in one of like the demo footage, we see someone who is presumably Rainer looking through some old saves in like a dev menu. And one of the things that we see is there's like, we can see a bunch of iterations of the player character doing random things in this house and everything like that. And some of them are just standing there. Some of them are walking into walls. And it looks very similar to kind of like and it's also called generations and everything like that. And it looks very similar to a generational AI training model where you're training the AI to do certain things to try and figure out, like, so it can go ahead and solve a puzzle basically. And he eventually switches it to be a specific character and has it retrace its steps, and it's specifically meant to be Care, which is the daughter of Marvin, who Marvin kidnapped and everything and kept in the school. And there's a day where, so she escapes from the school that she's being held in, and 2 days later shows up at her house on her birthday. And Rainer is actively asking her, where were you on November 11th? Where were you before you came home, what happened during this time period? And it seems to be directly asking this version of Care to trace her steps back. And so that's why I think that it's very much just this case of Raynor has put himself into the game somehow and is directly trying to influence it. I'm not entirely sure. And then why is Paul there? Why is Marvin going to get Paul? Like, there's a whole bunch of things that I don't have the answers because I'm not that smart when it comes to this. But I think it's super interesting. It has so much detail. There's like every little thing matters, and I love stuff like that. I love it when there's just little bits and pieces. And like the one, like I said, the video I was watching, it's like this person was completely mapping out someone's steps and making a map to try and figure out like where this guy was. Because there's a section where there's Marvin trying to show Paul something, and he's walking, and so Marvin's walking into a wall, and then doing a circle, and then walking again, and then he walks upwards and disappears. And this guy has mapped it out enough so that it's like, okay, so in the version that we initially saw Marvin playing in the generation that he was playing in, this area had a hallway, and so Marvin is walking down, and Marvin's version, he's walking down this hallway, he's trying to circle an area that he wants Paul to look at, and then he's walking back over to where there's a staircase and walking off, and that's why he disappears, because Marvin is functioning on a completely different generational plane than to what Paul is currently looking at, and that idea gets played with a lot, and I think it's just very, very interesting.
How many characters, like, overall are there, like, main character-wise in it?
That we physically see?
Well, you don't really physically see a lot of them.
Well, I'm talking about, like, characters in the game that we actually see. Like, that have player models. Because as far as that goes, the only actual quote-unquote players we see are Paul, Marvin, and Belle/Tiara. And those are the only, like, actual characters, like, that we see. But we know there's a model for Care that isn't an actual player character because the story is kind of revolving around Marvin's actions towards Care. But she has, like, an actual model in the game. And then there's Raynor, who we see mostly through just texts and everything like that. Like, just text boxes and talking to people. And then there's a bunch of other characters that don't really have, that are mostly portrayed as colored words more than anything else, because everyone seems to have a specific color tied to them. And so, like, we know that there's someone named Anna, who was Marvin's wife, who's blue. We know there is a dead kid called Michael, who is probably Raynor's brother and everything, who is pink, but we don't really ever see, we just see his grave. We don't see him. There was someone named Jill. There's someone named Lena that we might kind of see in the windmill. But there's not anything that's necessarily confirmed, kind of a deal. The only three that we know are Paul while he's there and also while he's not there. So there's normal Paul and then there's demo Paul, it seems. And then Belle/Tiara, who is only really there in demos, and he was kind of trapped in the Quitter's room, and also was probably the pink tool speaking, and we're pretty sure. So the entire idea, there's a lot of emphasis on rebirthing and basically trying to turn what something isn't into what it could be. There's a lot of emphasis on turning something that isn't into what it is, kind of a deal. Or what it is into something it isn't. And we see that with, like, because Belle gets turned into Tiara, kind of a deal. Whether it's by Marvin or by Raynor, we don't really know. And we know Marvin was trying to turn Care into Lena. who is the friend who was at the windmill that Marvin maybe killed. Don't really know. But then there's also a theory that Lena didn't ever die and didn't ever disappear either, and ended up adopting Belle and Paul and Kara are twins, or the same person. There's so many different layers and like different ways that it could go, and that's part of why it's so interesting. It's like, well, it could be this, and if you look at it this way, then that changes entirely how it looks on this side and everything like that. And it messes with the idea of there's no one answer to anything, because everything could be something else, and that could be something else.
Oh, right. And then aren't there like pets that you can collect in it too?
Yes. So like, it very widely accepted that the original idea of Petscop was actually meant to just be a children's game, specifically that Rainer was making for his little brother Mike before he died. Where it was kind of like a Pokemon game where you went and you had to solve puzzles to then go ahead and catch various pets. And there's a very heavy adoption motif, like, oh, they don't have to love you right away, you just have to give them a good home, they're just afraid, kind of a deal. And here, I'm gonna send you the giant comprehensive document they have going at the moment. It's 129 pages.
Oh dear God.
It has links to so much. There's even maps and everything.
Is it like officially finished?
I think so, yes. Because if I go to Petscop YouTube. I mean, in the description of the channel itself, it says thank you for watching, and the last Petscop video was posted 5 years ago. And I will say, I haven't actually watched the videos themselves. I've only watched people analyzing it. So like, yeah, this one that's like an hour and 30 minutes is actually only 15 minutes. This hour and 21 one, 11 and 59 seconds.
You know what you should do?
What?
You can play Giftscop.
What?
There's a playable version of the game.
Oh, is there actually?
Yeah. Here,
is it in the... There's a multiplayer?
I don't know how that works. And I also don't know how that would work in terms of actual functionality.
What in the world? Playable recreation.
Although I will say, I do have a PlayStation controller now. So...
Well... I mean, I don't have a PlayStation controller, but I have a controller.
I mean, you don't need a PlayStation controller. As proof by me playing Silent Hill with a keyboard, and boy was that hell.
I guess I have questions in regards to how this works necessarily.
The multiplayer or just playing it in general? Because in general, it seems very much like an emulation.
But like...
Go on.
How is it going to be, how is it functioning in the sense of, does Marvin show up? Is there like someone in the quitter's room or something like that?
That would be something you have to figure out.
If I started playing this and Marvin showed up, I would fucking scream.
Why?
I don't know, it would freak me out.
That sounds like a perfect game for you to play this upcoming Tuesday.
You would have to be there. I'm not playing this alone.
The one again, I have no clue how the multiplayer works. I'll try and set it up with you, but like,
Okay.
because I would
I guess we can see.
imagine, since it's a fan-made recreation, that makes me think that it would just go through like whatever events have been shown.
But the thing is, there is a something that Paul says is that he has done different saves, and while seeming to do the same things don't happen. And he supposedly hasn't run into people like Marvin or anything in these saves.
Well, then
And there's
maybe it'll be
even-
a fun thing you figure out.
Oh boy!
Well, okay,
And is-
what do you find more terrifying? The idea of Petscop or the idea of like an actual horror related game, like Alien Isolation?
I don't like either, to be fair.
Well,
Well, I mean, what the entire thing with Petscop is that the idea is that it has roots in reality, kind of a thing, where there's like, it was meant to be a kind of a call-out game for something that happened. While stuff like Alien Isolation is meant to scare you. So,
that's why it's perfect to go into it with no idea other than
I
vague
don't like
story
being
points.
scared.
Well, that's the thing. You yourself even said there's not really scary stuff in it, to be honest.
But there's still a sense of, but I'm also not the one actively doing things. Like, if I was in Paul's situation with no idea what's going on and everything like that, and fucking something starts trying to talk to me or communicating with me and just starts walking through walls and everything, or it shows up as a shadow thing after I stared out of something for like 2 hours and started trying to talk to me, like, I'm gonna be kind of freaked out.
Well, would you be staring out a window for 2 hours?
I mean, he was kind of told to, and he was also trying to figure out what was going on.
This is
so
the real reason that Sarah bit her DS for the Wipeout game. It was trying to talk to her.
no.
It told her to jump off the ball, and she did, and then she got mad at it. I think it could be interesting, especially considering you versus me. Like, I vaguely know some plot points that I've heard through you, but also other people about it, but that does not mean that I would understand anything as it was happening in real time. I would be like, oh, stare out the window for 2 hours? Oh, psych, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't want to do that. That's too much time.
I mean, what we could do is we could try playing it, and depending on how it works and everything, we could also then just kind of do like a watch thing.
Yeah,
where
Mikey.
we watch the actual. I bit my DS in half. Yeah, as a kid.
She did a lot of things.
I bet a lot of things, yes. But for some reason, when I play, because we had a Wipeout game, like the TV show Wipeout, it had a DS game, and I was my little completion itself even back then, and I also wasn't good at video games, and so I would keep failing at this one thing, and whenever I would get frustrated, I would bite the top of my DS and kind of pull it back a little bit.
Like a feral animal.
I don't know why that was my outlet. And then one time I did it too hard and it split in half, and I was devastated, as you can imagine. I did get another DS, like, as a gift. But I think shortly after I got the 3DS, so it didn't really matter. Wipeout's like a like
A
an
survival
obstacle
horror
course.
show.
It's an obstacle course that's very.
It makes you fear walls and mud. Because
Yeah,
they're
pretty
going to
much.
push you into it.
Yeah. But
Basically, it's like a slippery obstacle course.
It's like if American Ninja Warrior was not fair in the slightest, and also didn't totally require physical ability, simply for the fact of it's going to make you fail anyways. So,
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever actually seen someone win.
I remember there were some people who did.
What was the prize even? What did you get if you won?
Money, I'm pretty sure.
But is it worth it for how much trauma it caused, physical and otherwise?
I mean, they brought it back not too long ago, but it was kind of different. But a lot of the premise was the same.
I always wondered where they stored all of those mechanisms. That in and of itself could become some kind of SCP.
Well,
the old Wipeout ruins. There's something in the mud.
yes, Mikey, and the big red balls and everything like that.
I've never seen obstacle spelled that way, but I appreciate it.
Obstacle.
Obstacle. Anyways. Okay.
We should have a watch party where we just watch a bunch of analog horror stuff.
And then try and analyze it.
Yes.
Oh boy. Okay, well we definitely need to settle on like maximum
Which ones?
2.
Yeah.
Solely because some of these are crazy.
Some of them are long too.
Yeah, I mean, like for instance, all of the backroom stuff I think is well made, but some of them are really long.
Yeah. Like the actual Backrooms analog horror, like the actual official series, it's really, really good.
And it's all made by one guy.
By one man.
And then we can watch the boiled one.
Oh god.
To make sure Harold is Harold? Boyle? Doyle?
Doyle?
I have to make the connections out loud to make sure I get there.
Oh, Doyle, I heard you boiled.
Oh my god. Okay, let me write this down. Ba-ba-ba. That's not how you spell that word. You'll never guess how I misspelled unfold. Oh god. See, that's the other thing. I know that... How... Okay, hold on. Let me look up. I want to see how long the Walton Files is. It shows there's only like 13 videos. With like, oh god, one of the maximum ones is almost an hour long, and another one is like 39 minutes long. Yeah,
Well.
because some of these are like videos supposed to be explaining safety precautions and everything, so I don't think Walton Files is in the cards. Mythos potentially. Not Tangivirus, we don't need to go about that. Why would you order Wingstop at a time like this, Hide? At a time like this? In front of Sarah's mouth?
What?
She'll bite you. Anyways, we might do that next week. Just because it would be an easy thing. Plus, if we have a lore thing to go over, we could be like, oh, so maybe this is what this means. The Jennifer Coolidge impression comes back.
I'm looking up to see how long Petscop is in total. So the entire web series has a 5-hour, 7-minute length.
Oh dear God! This is why you're playing the game. That is your analysis of it. Because at least with like Gemini or Local 58, I know those maybe could reach 30-40 minutes. Maybe. Because like at most, I think some of the videos are maybe 15 minutes long. But there's a decent amount of them. And they change. But dear Lord. So Sarah's gonna be playing Petscop.
Oh, God.
She's gonna be having a fun time.
I was gonna play Club Penguin!
And now she's gonna be playing Petscop. And she can invite all her friends to play Petscop with her. I feel like that automatically will make whatever happens in the game much less terrifying. If you have
Maybe.
another weird little character moving around with you.
I guess.
Plus, how do you talk in that game? Isn't it weird though? Don't they like have directional inputs to make things?
Yeah, so the only time we ever see actual people talking is either Rainer through the text boxes when he's deliberately the one putting it in, or in demos where we see Marvin and Marvin tells Paul to plug in a second controller and to talk with this weird directional button mix thing.
Interesting. Well, then that'll be
And the
a
only
fun
people
thing.
we see use it is Belle/Tiara, Demo, Paul, and Marvin. And Marvin is the most used to it.
We should only be able to speak to each other through that.
No.
That way, we get the maximum vibe.
I'd rather not.
It'll be great. It'll be great. Also, Hide, they didn't mess up. They specifically withheld your order because they knew how much of a horrible person you could be sometimes.
I don't know why. He just saying he ordered Wingstop made me think of Shake Shack, and now I want to shake.
Not the same thing.
I know, but I want to shake.
A chicken wing in my milkshake, more likely than you think.
Ugh.
Hot sauce in my milkshake. A vinegar vanilla shake.
Oh no. Oh god.
Get that milk to
Hello?
curdle. Something down bad. Yes. Anyways. Well, you all have that to look forward to. Moving afterwards, I already know after that the thing that we're gonna cover. So it'll be fun. Fun time. I've planned.
Oh boy.
Everything's planned. Everybody, take a breath. Realize your inner demons cannot haunt you and that video games are just that. I'm looking at Sarah. And also realize that soon you will have a Doyle custom for you in your bedroom. And with that, good night.
Good night, everyone.